Hello and welcome back. Today is day 15 of our JavaScript series, and today we are diving into forms and form validation, a key concept of working with user inputs on your web pages. So, forms are how we gather data from users, whether it's a login form, sign up form, or a contact page. But before the form can be submitted, we need to validate that the input is correct. In this session, we are going to cover working with form inputs and gathering user input. Number two is the validation of forms using JavaScript, e.g., checking if fields are empty. And then number three is preventing the form submission and displaying helpful error messages when validating fails. And then that is it. Let's get started. Number one is working with the form inputs and gathering user inputs. So, working with forms inputs and retrieve the user inputs in JavaScript is where the user enters maybe their names or email. That is the first thing that we are going to write, the HTML code. We are going to write the form inside the HTML code. So we say form that is name, form with an ID name, and then sorry, the form should not have the ID name. Maybe user form with an ID user form. And then inside the form, add a label, a label with a name for name, and then name. Next is the input, with an ID name also, with the name is equals to the name, and then we break it twice. After that, we also add a label, another label with email, and then email. That is it. Next is the input for email. Input input type is email, it's not text, with an ID equals to email, with an ID which equals to email, and then we break it twice. Lastly, we put a button with the type equals to submit button with the value submit. That is it. Now in this form, it has two inputs, one for the name and the other for the email, plus a submit button. Now let's see how we can retrieve the user's input using this JavaScript. So retrieving user input, we are going to write a JavaScript code here, script. Inside the script, We say let form equals to document dot query selector with the ID user input or info user form and then we add an event listener form dot add an event listener so that when the user clicks on the submit button, a function will be called which is an event such that it prevents the form refreshing. It prevents it from refreshing the page. So we prevent event dot prevent default prevent the default refreshment, and then inside we name let name equals to document dot query selector by the name dot value inside dot value. So we are going to write the same for each one of them. Yes, next is the email. And then we now print them on the screen. We say console.log. We print the name as name from the input name next is the email from that is it. So in this example we use the submit button calling the event listeners to detect when the form is submitted. So the event prevent default method prevents this page from refreshing on form submission. And then we retrieve the user input with the value and log it to the console. So let's confirm if it's running. Need to confirm that if it's running. This is it. So maybe when you enter your name and anything, maybe your number, and then you click submit. So you see when you click submit, the page is not refreshing. It just remains that way. So that is it for the retrieving of user input with JavaScript. Next, we are going to see the validation of forms or form validation. So validation helps us to ensure that the user enters the correct form or information. For example, we need to check if the fields are empty or if the email contains a valid simple. So let's add the basic validation to our form. Number one is that you're going to say if down here. If the name equals to nothing. If the name is empty, you give us an alert that says what? Alert that says error, please enter your name. Please enter your name, and then we return that top further submission. Next, after this one is if, another if email does not include the @symbol, we say alert, please enter a valid email address. Alert with an error code or message that say error. Please enter a valid email. Enter a valid email address. Then we return that. Else, if everything is okay, you say alert, form successful. Form submitted successfully. Form submitted successfully. That is it. So that that is when you press submit without inputting any values, you receive an error message that says please enter your name. So maybe if we enter our name and then you leave the email part empty and try to click on the submit button, it will also give us an error message that says please enter a valid email address. Now if we enter everything correctly, like that is it, and then you press enter or submit, and a message is given to us that says, or an alert that says form submitted successfully. So that is how JavaScript prevents the form submission using or when the data is invalid. When the data is invalid. That is it for today. If you found this video helpful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notification. See you in our next lesson.